Good evening. My name is Candace Perry, and I am the Environmental Justice Director at New Jersey's Department of Environmental Protection. I'm really delighted to be sitting here with my colleague, Deputy Commissioner Sean Moriarty, also at the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection. And also we have with us Olivia Black, who is the Chief of Staff and Senior Advisor for Equity at US EPA Region 2 that covers New Jersey. Olivia is not here with us in person, but she is online. So hi to you, Olivia, and thanks so much for joining. And I want to say thank you to all of you for joining us tonight. We're really excited to have this session, and to all of you online. We see you, and we will be interacting with you virtually as well. So we are gathered with you all to talk about environmental justice here in Cumberland County. Unfortunately, there are some communities, because of their race, income, and limited English proficiency, that experience more environmental burdens like air and water pollution, flooding, and extreme heat than others. Those same communities also tend to have less environmental benefits like green space and trees that cool and clean the air and soak up stormwater runoff. We know that environmental justice issues come in many forms and that they do not always take place in urbanized and dense places. Unfortunately, they span across the entire region of our state, including in smaller, rural, and agricultural areas like in communities in Cumberland County, and of course here in the city of Bridgeton. We know that in this region, minority and low-income communities are contending with a number of contaminated sites due to the legacy of industry in the region, which unfortunately brings with it some tough economic hardships, making revitalization and redevelopment opportunities so important, while also trying to maintain balance with environmental and resilience goals, and providing access to the region's natural resources. This is why it is so important for government to hear directly from those most impacted so that we can be informed of your lived experiences and then use that feedback to color the work that we do every day. This is our 6th environmental justice session since returning. Can you hear me better? Okay, is that better? Okay. This is our 6th environmental justice session since returning to in-person events following the pandemic, and we're really thrilled to be here in Cumberland County. So we appreciate the warm welcome and the hospitality. We've also made stops in Burlington City and Burlington County, Elizabeth and Union County, South Toms River and Ocean City, Phillipsburg in the Highlands, and Passaic City in Passaic County. And we plan to make more stops along our tour before the year's end. So I'll briefly run through today's agenda for today, which is very simple. Soon I will open the floor to all of you in the room and those of you online to raise your comment or your question about environmental justice. Please remember to limit your questions or your comments to the topic today, environmental justice in Cumberland County. Any comments or questions outside of Cumberland County should have a statewide implication. And then for all other concerns, please feel free to reach out to myself or any of the DEP team. We can take those questions offline. So before I turn the floor over to you all to get us started with the discussion, I do want to start with some brief remarks and thank yous to the folks that helped to make this event happen. First, we are delighted to be here in Bridgeton at the Alms Center. Thanks so much to the Alms Center staff for hosting us and allowing us to use this space. And I know that we have the mayor of the city of Bridgeton, Mayor Albert Kelly, in the room. Would you like to say a few words of welcome?
Sure. Welcome. I appreciate the opportunity to work with you and your staff. I can consider Bridgeton. Many times we feel we're overlooked because we're in the deep south, but by you being here shows that you care. We look forward to following up on a lot of things. I got ideas and concerns I'd like to follow up with you offline. But thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. Also, I want to thank Thais Gold Jacinto. Thank you so much for being one of our partners to help create and plan this event. Ty is one of our newest members to the state's Environmental Justice Advisory Council and is also the president of the Native American Advancement Corporation, housed right here in Bridgeton. So Ty, would you like to say a few words?
Can you hear me? Well, it is said that if we are faithful to the little things, we will be blessed with great things. And this blessing is how we see our county. Cumberland County is a beautiful garden with so much to offer. And we welcome the community and the representation from the DEP. And we're honored to have you visit our home. My name is Ty, and I'm from Native American Advancement Corp. Our office is right on Commerce Street, right next to the Cohasset River. I'm also a member of the Nanticoke Lenni Lenape Nation and one of the original inhabitants of what we now call Cohasset. We never complain about the past. And when there are issues that arise, we are first to ask, how do I fix it? Let's get this done. We are so excited that you, the DEP, has asked to visit and have this meaningful conversation with our community. And I will just close with a little saying, treat the earth well. It was not given to you by your parents. It was loaned to you by your children. We do not inherit the earth from our ancestors. We borrow it from our children. We are one big family, deeply rooted and established here in Cumberland County. And we all have the same commitment to the security of the next 7 generations. Again, welcome to our home.
Thank you, Ty. Okay, at this time, I will pass it over to my colleague, Deputy Commissioner Sean Moriarty.
Thank you, Candace, and thank you, everyone. Ty, I might want to take that saying and try to adopt it as DEP's new credo, because that was really beautiful. So thank you. I just want to thank everybody for inviting us here today. We're honored and blessed to be here. I want to specifically and personally thank the mayor, the chief, Ty, Victor, for the tour that they just gave us around town. I want to say I love your town. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. We're just really grateful to be here and to get to see what Bridgeton has to offer. The history, the river, and now an opportunity to meet more of the people who occupy this wonderful little slice down here in Cumberland County. As Candace talked about, environmental justice means a lot of things. There's technical definitions that talk about fair treatment. They talk about access to decision making. But what it's really about, and what we're here to talk about today, is really just listening to communities and being responsive to their needs. It can be as simple as that, and that's what we're here to do today. New Jersey kind of uses the term overburdened community to describe what an environmental justice community means. That often, leads to connotations of an abundance of industrial facilities that a community doesn't want, but it's not just that. It can be about a lack of benefits. It's not just Newark or Camden or Patterson. It can be about a lack of benefits, whether that's lack of recreational access, whether that's an inability to have the funding to maintain critical historic assets, or whether it's a lack of economic opportunities. All of these things, those lack of benefits, are part of what DEP wants to focus on when we're dealing with the burdens that communities that have been overlooked for too long are facing. That's what we're here to do. And you might ask yourself, why does the Department of Environmental Protection care about my economic growth, right? That might seem inconsistent. It's not, and I'll tell you why. It's because we know, and going back to Ty saying, we know that when you take care of your natural resources, your air, your water, your history, and your people, when they're all healthy, your economy will be healthy. And we want to help you to do that. We want to help you to realize your goals. They are not our goals. They are your goals. And we are here to listen and be responsive. So I can make 3 promises in terms of what today will be like, what we can do. 1, we're going to listen. We're not just going to listen. We're going to hear what you're saying. We're going to understand what you're saying. We're going to internalize it. Second thing I can promise you is I don't have all the answers today. It's not possible for us to be able to solve all the problems in this forum. But the third promise we can make to you is that we will take back everything that you say today, and we will work with our colleagues to operationalize and make this a meaningful engagement. The mayor, we had a conversation. You're going to send us a list. We're going to get to work together. We want to build on that list by hearing from the rest of you. I'm very, very grateful to be here. I'm here because of the work of Candace and Nadia and Maria and their team and the work that they do every single day. I'm here to lift that up and support that. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity. I sincerely hope that today is the beginning of our relationship, that as you said, Mr. Mayor, you never again feel overlooked by the state of New Jersey. We want to be here. Even when we leave today, we will not be leaving. We will stay here in spirit. We have this conversation with our kids about the invisible string. We're trying to build those invisible strings with our environmental justice communities. Even when we're not with you, we are together in lifting you up and following through on our promise of environmental justice. With that, I'd like to give an opportunity to Olivia Black, my former colleague, one of the leaders at the department when we really started to make this work meaningful. And we're very lucky to have her at EPA now. So Olivia, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Deputy Commissioner Moriarty, and good evening to everyone. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here and share a few remarks. And I wanted to thank the mayor for the welcome to us as well. There are quite a few number of people from EPA on the phone, so we're delighted to be here with you. And I also just want to take a stop and take a moment to give the recognition to the Nanticoke Lenni Lenape, who stands where you are in person. So certainly to give cognizance to that. And also in recognition of the diversity of the community in which you sit, if you don't mind, I'm going to give a few remarks in Spanish because I believe it's important to take the time for you to hear every language that reflects your community mainstream in a session like this one today. Buenas tardes, es un honor estar aquí. Me llamo Olivia Black, la asesora principal en asuntos de equidad y la jefe de gabinete de la región 2 de EPA. Nuestra región sirve a Nueva Jersey, Nueva York, Puerto Rico y las Islas Vírgenes de los Estados Unidos, así como a 8 naciones indígenas reconocidas a nivel federal. El español no es mi primer idioma, pero estoy profundamente dedicada bajo el liderazgo de la administradora Reagan y la administradora región Lisa García, al igual que todos nosotros en la región 2, a ir más allá de nuestra zona de confort para fomentar una mayor diversidad, equidad e inclusión y justicia en el trabajo que nos sentimos honrados de hacer cada día como servidores públicos. La EPA sabe que el trabajo de justicia ambiental se realiza junto con nuestras comunidades, ciudades y estados. Estamos encantados de estar aquí con DEP y con ustedes. Ahora, sin más preámbulos, estoy emocionada de comenzar y escuchar sus experiencias, preguntas, comentarios y recomendaciones. Muchas gracias. So in English, I said that it is an honor to be here. My name is Olivia Glenn. I'm the Chief of Staff and Senior Advisor for Equity for Region 2 of EPA that serves New Jersey, New York, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands, as well as 8 federally recognized tribes. Spanish is not my first language, but being in the community that we are in, we wanted to show an honor and respect for the languages of this community. EPA knows that the work of environmental justice must be done together with communities, cities, and our state governments. And we are delighted to be here with you, with DEP, to share in a conversation for engagement this evening. And so without further ado, we are excited to hear any comments, questions, experiences, and recommendations that the community may have. So thank you so much again for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you so Testing. Thank you so much, Olivia, for those remarks. So at this time, I want to turn the floor over to you. If you are physically able, please form a line at the mic here, and we'll take comments and questions one by one. For those of you online, please feel free to put your comment or your question in the chat and we will read them aloud. Or feel free to raise your hand and we will call on you to unmute yourself and orally ask your question or say your comment. So we'll take the first person who's interested.
Do I have to give my name or anything? I didn't know if this was like one of those meetings.
No, so
Oh, okay.
no one in the room has to give
Oh,
their
okay.
name,
I
but
didn't know
if
if it
you
was
would
like one
like
of
to
those like
share.
public meetings or not.
Yeah.
I'm from Millville. My name's Greg Kears. I have a question actually about, there's a lot of talk here in Cumberland County, especially in the two municipalities on the Morris River watershed, about really developing out warehousing, like on the level that we're talking in North Jersey and along the 95 corridor, 295 corridor. And my concern is that, I mean, I kayak in that river and I already see the runoff now that makes my shoes look physically hard within an hour getting them in that mud or wet. And I can't think of the runoff that's in it now is already affecting that area environmentally and the Bay Shore especially. That's even further down, so everything past Millville and Vineland keeps happening times 10 maybe, because there's agricultural runoff at that point. So my concern is if the state, what's the state going to do? Because a lot of this, especially in Millville, is adjacent to literally exempted state game lands like Bevins, and where these are just natural areas the state already owns, it seems almost antithetical to build, develop a warehouse basically in the middle of a state tract of game land. Because between migratory birds that come through here, any number of species, I don't know, it just seems very antithetical to what the state's trying to do. And Cumberland has had a real problem in this past of getting a lot dumped on us, like prisons and stuff like that. And I feel like the last thing we need, we actually have a somewhat pristine environment, and it's like the one thing we kind of don't need to have taken away from us because of just like unmitigated development, especially on these major watersheds. Bridgeton, not as much, because the Kansas isn't the same as the Morris River, because it's not as big. But that's all for me. Thank you.
So that's a good question. Admittedly, the kind of statewide warehouse sprawl is a challenge for us as regulators. Something that folks might not always realize is, we're the Department of Environmental Protection and we are charged with protecting all of your natural resources, but the law only gives us jurisdiction in certain areas. When you're talking about development very close to rivers like Morris River, we may have jurisdiction due to flooding and wetlands and other things, and in those cases, we exercise that jurisdiction to ensure as best we can that things like runoff are taken care of and they're not impacting those water bodies. We want to make sure that those water bodies are clean. Cohansey is a C1 water. It's the highest level. We're working on watershed restoration plans down in this area to bring the Morris up to that same standard. Right? We want every major river in the state to support all of those uses: recreation, fish, all of that. Right. So at base, we're working to protect all of those rivers. When a warehouse is outside of our jurisdiction, it can be a little bit more challenging. One of the things we've been working to do most recently is to update our stormwater rules. I think as folks, living anywhere recognize, those storms are worse than they used to be. They happen more frequently, and when they happen, they're more intense, and they're generating a significantly higher amount of rain, both in short spurts and over a year. Looking 5, in some cases 20% more than what our standards currently set. So we're working to update that. And what that would do on a local level, even if it's outside of our jurisdiction, when the local municipality is implementing stormwater, they would be forcing the developer to account for that type of rain to reduce runoff, right? In addition to that, the State Planning Commission has taken up this issue, has released guidance in terms of in terms of warehouse siting, and trying to suggest to folks, and in particular on a local level where you're doing your zoning and all, try to provide some suggestions and guidance on where to build these types of facilities. to the extent we could give you any advice in that regard. If you have concerns about a particular development, you can call the department and we can talk to you about whether we have jurisdiction. And additionally, I think it's important in all things to be involved at the local level, right? Those decisions are often first and foremost made there. And I think the points that you made, hopefully made to your elected officials have the same impact that they would to us.
Yeah, and my team can make sure that we're sharing that warehouse guidance that Sean just mentioned with all of the participants in person and online. Definitely encourage you to raise that up with your local officials. They may not know about it, that it exists. The state Office of Planning Advocacy just posted it maybe a week or not even 2 ago. So we'll be sure to share that with you.
My name is Mark Gold, but what I want to talk about is on the personal level. My whole family has been here since the beginning. I fished the Cohansey for 75 years of my 80. I've walked to go fishing. Now, one of the things that's happening right now, like I said, it's on a personal level, but I noticed that you cannot go fishing on the Cohansey. Now, why can't you? It's full of perch. It's where I want to be. That's where I find my peace. But now, the last effort that we have was at the golf course that we just passed down here in Fairton. Now, they have closed it off so that they can have walking paths. Now, if you're only having recreation for the rich, a walking path or a golf course is fine. But too many times, the people that I associate with, the people that I'm in charge of, we would rather feed our families naturally. But now we have no access. I mean, I'm kind of ornery now. What I did with the bulkhead that they put up there at the golf course the last time, I took my truck and I went on through. But see, I'm 80 years old now. I'm afraid that I can't spend no time in the lockup. But I need somebody to take the side of the poor people. The poor people who enjoy fishing, but they just don't enjoy fishing. They enjoy life, feeding their families from it. So I don't know who to go to because, quite frankly, I'll tell you what, that time that I told you that I went through the bulkhead, one of the ladies from Fairton took the people that were from the DEP, the DEP? Environmental Protection. And they blocked my truck in. Well, that's the wrong thing to do. But see, we shouldn't have to go through this kind of turmoil to enjoy our family living. Like I said, I've been on that river for 75 years. Probably longer than that because my dad probably took us out in his boat. But I don't know who to talk to. Talking to you about something that's like this instead of environmental protection. I don't know if I'm talking to the right ears, but I need to express myself.
Yeah, you're talking to the right people.
They put a boat ramp down in the back of Fairton, down the Cedarville area. That doesn't do anybody any good. I mean, yeah, do I use it? Yes, but my fishing holes, I can tell you where every bend where you can just throw your line and catch. What happened to us? What happened to our permission? What happened to our rights to be able to live our life the way we did? So, I hope.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. I think to one of the points, yes, we do. The Division of Fish and Wildlife is part of the department. We certainly oversee those lands and recognize that there are some concerns with the way that we've administered access there. To the broader point, though, I think there's some work that we can do together to get you more meaningful access to the river to use it in the ways that you have historically, and I believe you have a right to. So I think that there's some conversation there, and I can think of some ideas that we probably want to vet internally to see if we might be able to provide some direct assistance in that regard. At the very least.
Do you own the golf course? Is that part of what you guys have?
I don't believe we do. But
It is Green Acres.
oh, is it? Well, there's whether it's Green Acres encumbered or whether it's state owned. It is the golf course is fishing. Okay. Before I just make clear, I have no idea exactly about that property. We will look into it and we will get you an answer. If that property has any state involvement from a funding perspective or ownership perspective, we will restore that access. We will work to do that. To the extent it's not, we will explore other avenues with you to identify those places that you like to be and historically have been, and determine whether we can help you to regain access to those. Absolutely.
Just getting some information from my team that it was purchased through Green Acres for Fish and Wildlife.
Yeah. Okay. That we will look into that
Can
immediately.
you tell us the name of the golf course?
Yeah.
It was Cohantic.
Okay.
We're Cohantic. Yes.
Okay.
It was 2 miles from where we were in our school.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm really excited that you're here and welcome. And I totally agree with your comment about economic development and environmental protection. It does go hand in hand. Bridgeton is only 6 square miles, 6.5 square miles. We've had a lot of manufacturing within the city over the course of the life of the city. I'm hoping, it's not a question, it's more of a statement. I'm hoping you're here to help us with any identified brownfields or any identified lots that cannot be developed, that hopefully with your help we will be able to develop either for recreation purposes or whatever. But that's my comment, and I'm hoping we can do this together.
I would like to provide, yes, I am hoping we can do this together as well. I mean, one thing that the commissioner has made very, very clear in his time in this position is that we have a lot of spending power. We have a lot of money that we can get to folks to do meaningful things, and the cleanup and redevelopment of brownfields is something that we are extremely committed to. And having taken this tour today, we can see a lot of opportunities for that type of work here. We want to work with you to get some of that funding into your hands, and empower your leadership to make those things happen.
The previous speaker was Rosemary DeQuinzio. She's on City Council. I also want to recognize another City Council person, Marion King. They both left meetings to come here, and I appreciate you guys being here. And I thank you for coming to hear our concerns about the great city of Bridgeton and Cumberland County. And as I mentioned to you before, when we were coming into town, I want to get your help to repurpose 13 acres that used to be a landfill that's in the middle of a residential area. There's 2 landfills that we pass. I believe Chief Mark pointed one out to you on the corner of Panthea and Southeast Avenue. And there's another that is closer to our residential area. We call it the old tin can property. There used to be a Kwanzaa hut that used to sit there, and we used that back in the 60s and 70s. But because it was a landfill, the regulations in those days were not as stringent as they are now. The Kwanzaa hut started sinking, and so we had to eliminate that, and the property's been vacant ever since. What I like to do is recapture that property so that we can turn that into a park. Since as I shared with you earlier, we've done 65 houses in that area, brand new houses. And we want to add another, in that vicinity, another 100 houses. And we need some type of recreational area for our people to
to enjoy themselves. So I thank you for sharing with me to send you a list so that we can get started on that, because that's something that's of a high priority. Am I correct, Ms. King? Mr. Quazio? No recreation on the south side, but we need to. Everyone that is able to go to our traditional park, but we need to have something on that side of town so that the people recognize that we are working with them. And we want to basically be able to have memories in that area.
More boat slip there. More boat slip there.
Boat slip?
No boat slip.
Okay. But as we're speaking when we're in the tour, they asked me for a list. And I'm going to give them a list so that we can begin working on that. We need to do the remediation study of that 13 acres and see what's in the ground. Then we need funding for that so we can go and residents can see that we're working on that. Did I miss anything?
Hey, Don. Did you miss anything?
I don't know if you spoke in terms of like a dredge for the Cohansey River. Hi, Marion King, Richmond City Council. I've always been inquiring about a light dredging of the Cohansey River so that we can use it for recreational purposes, boat slips, and because we have a waterway, which is cities would love to have the waterway that we have, but it's kind of unusable and sort of an eyesore, as you're seeing, but I'm glad to know that you have money, so then money always helps.
Yes,
yeah.
it does.
Yeah, because we don't have that type of money, and I know it doesn't incorporate the Army Corps of Engineers to do a study as well, but we have to start somewhere. And as he was speaking about the residential Southeast Avenue and Garfield, is it, or Fremont? The old tin can property. It's a historical black neighborhood. There, we will die and people will still love that. It's like a sacred ground for recreation for the South Side, where the Unity Days and field events and all of that was there. So we are hoping to revitalize that as soon as possible. The residents have been waiting a long time already, and I mean 20, almost 30 years for that. So we've skipped a few generations that had the opportunity to have a park in their neighborhood. And so if you can prioritize that, it would make me happy.
Absolutely. And I mean, maybe it goes without saying, but we'll say it anyway. Towns that want to build parks and recreational amenities for their residents are towns we want to be in business with. So, we'll find some ways to help you in that regard, and we'll find some ways to hopefully get you some funding to do that assessment of that landfill. We've been fortunate to have significant success in those types of projects across the state. So we have some know-how there, and we'll see what we can do with that. The dredging piece that you mentioned, the statewide dredging is typically conducted by DOT now, but our programs do an interface, and we can get you some information on that and determine whether that's a feasible thing for here, depending on a number of factors that DOT would have to take into account. But we can certainly get you information on that.
Yeah, I understand it's done like dredging. I think it was they attempted it in 1990. They attempted it in 1990. So we're talking about so there. Yeah, we did discuss it. Okay, I was like, no, that was on the tour. On the tour. Okay, I'm sorry.
Also, one of the key job area Native American Advancement Corporation, I think one of the key points that
You gotta get to the
people touched on. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
You gotta get
Real close? John Barry, Native American Advancement Corporation. So, one of the things that people touched on, and you talked about it, there's economic development that needs to be done. There's all kind of infrastructure that needs to be done. We have a laundry list. Like both councilwomen said and Mr. Mayor said, The master plan from 30 years ago to today has all been, it's a Christmas list. You can see it. And one of the key things we keep talking about is the generations. There's been generations that they have no idea. But one of the key aspects that I think that we need to look at, and if you guys have a funding source for it, is that education and the programs. That's what we're currently working on as we speak. We're developing an AmeriCorps program, environmental stewardship. But a part of that also, I mean, we're focusing on one kernel of this whole massive silo. What we need to do is also, if it's available, is to look to how to integrate into FFA and the different high school programs, because it starts there. I mean, and Adam and I, we just had a talk on the way over. It's hard to even find, for his generation, he's saying they need work that's meaningful. They don't want to just go to work. It has to mean something. That they don't want to work in these, they want to work in more of a social enterprise. So now it's even key to start generating these programs for the local. So I mean, in my opinion, community development is economic development. So, I mean, that's just my 2 cents.
No, that's fantastic. And I think, and Candace can likely speak more to this, but part of what we do at the department is work to coordinate environmental justice efforts across the state. We have a lot of partners, right? So even where DEP might not touch on something specifically, we may be able to get you some contact and some momentum with some of the other agencies who can help, whether it's EDA, whether it's Department of Education, whoever that might be, to help to answer to those needs that we don't necessarily have the direct ability to touch.
Yeah, I do just want to add on that New Jersey is the first state to now require climate change as a part of school curriculum now. And so the DEP has an environmental education office. And so if there's any needs there in terms of creating programs or what are the key parts of the climate change curriculum that teachers can be trained up on, we can get you connected to our environmental education office. Also, we just went through and executed a youth inclusion program, which was all about getting youth, I think ages 15 to maybe 20, into the department to see and learn and understand all of the opportunities for environmental careers that there are. And so there could be an opportunity as we expand that program out in the future to maybe tap into Bridgeton youth and see if they would be interested in coming to DEP and learning about what we do. And maybe that's a spring point for that young person to have a career in environmentalism in the future.
Say, I mean, we just in my neighborhood alone, a lot of
Pennsylvania, New York,
I do want to give the floor to Olivia Glenn from EPA. I think you have your hand raised online.
Yes, good evening, I do. Can you hear me? Are you able to hear me?
Yes. We hear you.
Okay, I'm hoping that you can hear me. I just wanted to share a response from listening to the last approximately 4 speakers, just to share in terms of resources that the US EPA does have some brownfields grants monies. And so I just wanted you all to know that in terms of partnering on any efforts with the state and community, that EPA would also be willing to bring some of our brownfields resources to help some of the items and sites that you saw on the tour today. We do have some staff from EPA who are in the room, and so we can certainly debrief about that and figure out how we can be most helpful. We do also have, with our Brownfields office, we do have some programming and training that we do offer to help people with green collar jobs. So those are some resources that we could also just be sure to share with you through the DEP, since we know that they're collecting your points of contact today. We'd be happy to share those. And with the comment that was raised about the dredging of the river, From a federal perspective, for EPA, we're happy as a part of the federal family, if need be, to do reach out to Army Corps of Engineers to share with her. You know, it's not just EPA who has this commitment to furthering environmental justice. It is a shared commitment across all of federal government. So we'll coordinate with the state DEP as well to just make sure that we connect at the right touch point on that if it's necessary. And actually, the last thing I wanted to share in terms of the transformation of spaces, EPA has been a part of some really great projects with DEP. One I can think of is the Kramer Hill Waterfront Park in the city of Camden, where it was a landfill that had not been closed, that had gotten closed and was transformed into a park. And we were at a ribbon cutting today in the city of Camden on a site where there was previously illegal dumping in the middle of a residential community. We got that site cleaned up, we got the buildings torn down, did soil remediation, and expanded the park by 3.5 acres. Now efforts like that takes time, it takes coordination and dedication, but I just share it with you to have a sense of where the potential and the promise is, and the things that we know that we do stand the potential to do when we work together. So we're here to support whatever DEP deems is the best next steps in coordination with the community. Thank you.
Thanks, Olivia.
Good evening. Welcome to all my neighbors and friends and relatives. I am Nancy Ridgway from Upper Deerfield and Fairfield Townships. And I have a problem. And I need a name and a telephone number of a responsible person who can answer my questions and move my problem into the next phase. I don't want to get into my problem right now, but as a citizen, as a taxpayer, I know the DEP has a lot of regulations that everyone must follow, but I'm still strongly believing that citizens have the right to live on their property undisturbed. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll have our team follow up with you one-on-one.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for being here. It's really wonderful to see that the DEP is concerned about the area, the region. I am Flavia Alaya. You may perhaps know my name already as a member of the Historic Sites Council, which is part of the Department of Environmental Protection, as you know. And actually, there are 2 members of the Historic Sites Council who live in Cumberland County. So while we are, of course, deeply concerned, I live in Bridgeton, and I am concerned about the transition from an industrial city to a city that now has to acknowledge its role in the environment of the entire region, and has to recognize its potential future, if it has a future, in a sustainable environment. But I want to also identify myself locally as a founding member of the Center for Historic American Building Arts, which is an historic preservation organization. Actually, I started my career as a preservationist in Paterson, New Jersey, another industrial city, which has equivalent problems of transitioning from industrialization to a more sustainable quality of life. And I brought some of that experience, I hope some of that wisdom with me when I moved to Bridgeton 16 years ago. We founded the Center for Historic American Building Arts because Bridgeton contains the largest historic district in the state. And it includes a lot of potentially very viable households that perhaps don't have the distinction, the historic architectural distinction of some of the features of the historic district, and perhaps can compete with some of the architectural features of the rest of the state. But these are working class neighborhoods with strings of homes that were owned by poor families, that were shared by poor families. They're doubles. They have these wonderful front porches. They strike us in the Center for Historic American Building Arts, which is otherwise known as CHABA, and I will refer to it as CHABA from now on because it's a mouthful. That CHABA realizes can be a resource for a futuristic city where people are looking for small footprint housing, a still quality of life that is incomparable. As we pointed out, many people are moving from cities into this area, and Bridgeton is enjoying some of that movement. But people are buying homes that are quite extraordinary in the wealthier part of the district, perhaps not in the communities, the former working class communities. And I think there ought to be a strategy for encouraging people to see these former working class homes as potentially quite sustainable living communities for what we consider, millennials now, or even people born in the 21st century. So that's one area of concern for me as a preservationist in Bridgeton. Another is, of course, our industrial heritage, and CHABA has been working with the city to recreate the narrative of industry and connect it with post-industry with the Cumberland Nail and Iron Works, the former Cumberland Nail and Iron Works. The one feature of that large footprint in the industry now is the nail house, a very small building, but it conveys the message that we need to convey of a transition from an industrial society to a much more sustainable model of economic development. One site that we've recently lost, or potentially lost, we lost the most high-profile example of architecture on it, is the Farragut. I know the city and the state were working together to deal with the brownfield aspect of the Farragut site. And in the process of waiting, we lost the most architecturally sound feature of that site. We haven't lost the history. And your intro, which emphasized the importance of history to these communities, made me feel that somehow we might find a way to recover the Farragut site and tell its story and make it a useful site again without necessarily having that once extraordinary architectural feature on it. But if you could possibly indicate that there is a gesture in the direction of saving this site and recovering this brownfield and perhaps making it a new venture in 21st century sustainable industry, I would love to hear it.
Yeah, I mean,
And I thank you for
Absolutely.
the opportunity to speak to you.
No, thank you, and thank you for all that, and thank you for the work you do to keep New Jersey's history alive and help people understand where we come from. I mean, how that's critical to understand where we're going. I mean, one thing that stuck out to me in general and on our tour is I think the real potential of a lot of these historic buildings that you have around town, and you know how we might be able to work through any of our programs or other state programs to work to preserve and to rehab those structures. And you know, one of the things that we face at the department, maybe our slice of this is a little bit thinner, but we had a conversation with our EPA colleagues about how we can have success in this space. You know, we preserve something through our Green Acres program that has historic value. The way that we've kind of evolved our thinking is to allow for significantly more flexibility in how you use those buildings, right? Because they can't all be used for park offices or something else. But that historic value in and of itself, that intrinsic value, may be worth additional flexibility. Might be worth something where, you know, a futuristic green industry is able to occupy that space that's been preserved through some sort of funding, then they're able to generate money to keep that up and to manage it to historic standards. That's a model that we believe in our area, and I think that, you know, one of the things that I think we'll go back to look at is, you know, how we can leverage our available funding and determine whether there's additional funding through other state agencies to look in that vein, to take some of your historic buildings and turn them into something that can help you to generate jobs, ratables, revenue, all those things, while keeping them what they are, which is just absolutely precious resources. So I hope that we can do that together.
Hey y'all, thanks for having me. Thanks for the opportunity to speak and for coming all the way down here. My name is Lucia Osborne. I'm with the American Littoral Society. Full disclosure, I do not live in Cumberland County, but I spend a lot of time here and I just know how special of a place this is. And I'm not just saying that because of the really unique ecosystems that we have and the, you know, critically endangered shorebirds and, you know, world's largest population of horseshoe crabs and all that other cool stuff. The people here are just really, really awesome. I have the privilege of working in Bridgeton quite a lot, and this community is just so motivated and shows up and really cares about making their place better, and that's just really, really cool. When it comes to environmental justice, there's two things I just wanted to highlight. So the first is a safe Cohansey River. And when I say safe, I mean swimmable, I mean accessible, I mean fishable, and I mean equitable. You know, the Cohansey River, it has, you know, has some trouble. There are known TMDLs for mercury, polychlorinated biphenyls, those are PCBs, and phosphorus. There is a watershed management plan for the Cohansey River, but it's only for the upper portion of the river. It stops just before you get to Bridgeton. There's also some USGS gauges which monitor water quality in the Cohansey. Again, those are all upstream from Bridgeton. So it's almost as if historically you get to the place where there's more people of color, maybe more poverty, and those resources and plans and tools, they just don't reach here. So I'd really like to see that change. I'd like to see a comprehensive plan to improve water quality in the Cohansey and to make sure people have access to fish and swim and really fully enjoy this river. And then I'd like to see that plan implemented. The other thing I wanted to talk about briefly is further downstream at the Bayshore. And that is erosion and risk of coastal flooding. So Bivalve and Port Norris, those are two overburdened communities right on the bay, and they actually house almost all of the state's oyster industry. Every marina that they have is in imminent danger of being lost to erosion and coastal flooding. Now, the Littoral Society, we do work to increase climate resiliency, habitat restoration, but we're not done with that work, and we need funding to complete our restoration work. And it's really important because this is actually protecting people's lives and livelihood. We have seen this in New Jersey before where entire communities have been abandoned. You can go to Thompson's Beach and you can see the old structures of houses where people just had to pick up and leave because they couldn't live there anymore. And that's due to sea level rise, erosion, coastal flooding. So we need the resources to help protect people from that, and the ecology there and the businesses there. So thank you very much.
Thank you, and thanks for everything you do. Tell Tim I said hi.
Thank you for that.
Does anybody else want to talk? I might be a bald guy in a suit, but I'm not scary. So please don't be shy.
I just wanted to mention one last thing. I would like everybody, if they can, and to spread the word, to follow the DEP on all the social media channels. There's a lot of good things that are going on in all the communities, and you'll be surprised. They do more posts than I do, and I post a lot. There's YouTube videos. The YouTube channel's awesome. There's jobs. I love the job ads, by the way. So I don't know who does that, but follow the social media and to see what they've invested in all our communities. They are really interested in our communities. They're really invested, and for them to come down here, it's just a wonderful thing.
Thank you, Ty. They don't let me on the YouTube channel, but to that point, we really appreciate that, and that feedback is incredibly beneficial for us to understand that people actually are seeing it and it making a difference. And we talk about the funding, and I think maybe we may have to talk more, but if we leave you with one thing, like, we don't have unlimited funding, right? But we're committed to prioritizing that funding in communities like yours. And where there's a will, where there's community engagement, where there's leadership, we're going to find a way to help. And I really hope that if you take nothing else away from today, that you know that we mean that, and we're gonna continue this relationship. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and the Office of Environmental Justice exists to facilitate conversations about whatever your concerns, your issues, your questions, your recommendations are with the appropriate office, division, bureau within the DEP or within state government or within federal government. So I may not know the right person off the top of my head, but I can find the right person. So I would encourage everyone here, if you think of something tomorrow or the next week or whenever, to please reach out. So environmentaljustice@dep.nj.gov, environmentaljustice.dep.nj.gov. That's the best way to get connected to my office and my staff, and then we can further the conversation from there. And yes, we are hiring. We have about 50 or 60 positions open, so. Anyone online have any questions? I see that we're coming to a natural pause We are willing and committed to being here until 7:30 or even after to really stay and hear and have continued conversations. But I do want to invite you all to continue and stay and engage with us, or if you're feeling like this is a natural pause, that's okay as well. Okay, Olivia, I see that you have your hand up. Well, we'll give it to Mark.
Wait a minute, I'll put my hand up there, 'cause
Okay.
I'm not used to following rules.
We'll give it to Mark, and then we'll go to you, Olivia.
You know, I don't know if I'm out of place because I don't know what the government in the city of Richmond has done already. But coming up, we had can houses, glass houses. We had all kinds of industry that kept us surviving. But I don't know what made them leave, but they left us with a big hole. They left us with all those old buildings. As we were riding by today, I see that they store stuff there. Well, I'm in construction, so I know that if you leave some property out and it rains, the runoff is going right into the river. It's going into people's food that they process. So what my biggest concern is what are we going to do about those abandoned can houses, those abandoned glass houses? Is there a program that forces those owners to clean up their property, make it safe?
We can absolutely look at those specific properties. We have had, over the last couple of years, kind of like a quarterly basis, we've been investigating and filing complaints against a lot of those types of businesses. Ones that have left communities, ones that haven't cleaned up their messes, and we want to hold the folks who are responsible for that accountable. So we can begin looking at those properties, determine if there are outstanding environmental violations, and if so, we will follow up with them.
Thank you, sir.
Absolutely.
Did I get you in trouble? Okay. I didn't want to go back to my seat because it's next to his.
You're sitting very close to the mayor. I'll be very careful.
Okay, we'll go to you now, Olivia.
Okay, thanks so much. I was just going to share for the people who are online, because even though we've been on Zoom calls for 2.5 years now, every platform is a little bit different. So I just wanted to share that if there is anyone online who does want to comment, the way you do it is you click on the More button that's here, on the banner across the bottom, and then you click the word Reactions, and under Reactions, it gives you an option to raise your hand. So I just wanted to, walk you through how you do it. And I was initially, I'll just go out there and tell you how embarrassed I was. There was one point where I unmuted myself and I thought everyone could hear me talking, and they didn't hear me at all. So don't be embarrassed, don't be shy, just give it a try. And I'll tell you that the facilitator saw my lips moving and figured out that I wanted to say something. So if you want to speak, please feel free to do so. And I know that these two from DEP are very deeply committed to hearing what everyone has to say. That's all I wanted to share.
Thanks, Olivia.
For the most personal question I've ever asked at a public thing, what are you, in terms of it was brought up about the birding at the shore. I happen to be an avid birder, and the shore birding is incredible, especially at the bottom of the Morris River. And what exactly is the state doing? Because the populations of the horseshoe crabs are going down, and there was, I think it was, I can't remember, it was like 35% of the normal number red knots this year. I mean, I can tell you just locally, I saw less birds over the past probably 3 years going down year to year. And even the amount of species are changing, like the golden plovers stay a little less, the skimmers stay a little less. And it's like every bird is kind of moving. And I didn't know because where so much happens on the bayshore affects those horseshoe crabs. And that affects the birds. What are we doing about the horseshoe crabs? Because that's the biggest thing in the bay ecosystem. It seems to be the linchpin. So I'm just curious, since you're here.
Well, I did promise you, one of the promises I made is I wasn't going to be able to answer every single one of your questions. And unfortunately, the specifics of the horseshoe crab population are beyond my knowledge at this point. I will get you an answer, and I will get you in touch with somebody who knows way more than I do on that. And perhaps our friend from ALS does and can assist. And that's wonderful.
So I'm actually going to respond with a question, and that is, does the DEP or the EPA weigh in at all with the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission? And the reason why I'm asking this is because, as our friend here just said, all of the shorebirds rely on horseshoe crab eggs. Now, the Littoral Society, we worked to get a moratorium, that's a ban on harvesting horseshoe crabs back in 2008. So the ASMFC, the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission, we have an agreement with them, so they are not allowed to take any female horseshoe crabs, and the reason for that is the female horseshoe crabs lay eggs. Now, horseshoe crabs, for anyone who doesn't know, are used as bait, and they're also used in the biomedical industry. If you've ever had an intravenous drug, or maybe an organ transplant, or like a hip replacement, that's all tested with horseshoe crab blood to make sure it's safe to go into your body. Right now, the ASMFC is they're proposing to raise the limits on horseshoe crab harvesting, and they're also proposing to allow the harvest of female horseshoe crabs. That's a big problem, and we don't think they should be allowed to do that because, as our friend here said, their numbers have not recovered, and in 2021, the red knots were at a historic low. Right now, their populations are about down 75% from what they were from the 1980s to 2000. So do you guys weigh in on that at all?
We do. We're on the council. I don't know the specifics, but I'm going to ask some questions.
Great, thanks.
Absolutely.
What about the regular crabs? There's a decrease in population of regular crabs, and there's no regulations. And rural people can't go because of the crabbing industry and the larger.
I'm not qualified to speak on that.
Well, that was our staple, our people, the Cohansey Lenape people.
Okay, so I think at this time we'll wrap up, but I want to say that I really, really appreciate all of you showing up on a Thursday night to meet with us, to show us around the city, to really welcome us into this space and this place and tell us about the history. It's so important for government, whether it's state, local, federal. In order for us to do our jobs well, we have to hear from the people. We have to know what your concerns are, and we have to incorporate that feedback into what we do. It's so important, because if not for that feedback, we can only go so far. Sitting in Trenton, we can't always see and know what's happening on the ground in Bridgeton. So it's so important to come to Cumberland County and to get this firsthand experience. So I thank you for sharing. It's really important, and we're committed to following up with you. So in terms of follow-ups, we will do a summary of the notes from this meeting today, and we'll send that out to all of the participants. We will also add you to our Office of Environmental Justice email list. So we send out a newsletter every 2 weeks, which will have opportunities, common opportunities, meeting opportunities, grant opportunities. So you can stay in touch with us and get more information that way. And then, like I said, if anything else comes up, please feel free to contact my office and we can have an ongoing discussion. Any last words from you, Sean?
So this is the first time I've had an opportunity to do one of these listening sessions, and I say this with complete sincerity. This makes my job worthwhile. So thank you.
I do have something else.
Yes,
I took you guys for a ride, and we went down and we crossed one bridge over to South Avenue, but we didn't cross the other because it's been on hold. I don't know if you have the answer. You can go to them for the answer. There's a bridge that's been out for how many years? 3 years? We did talk about it.
Yeah, we're gonna figure out what the holdup is with that.
You would?
Absolutely.
That's that.
Yep. Whatever we have and any control we have over that, we will find out what's going on.
Any last words from you, Olivia?
Sure, can you hear me? Okay, I just wanted to thank everybody for coming out and to thank my colleagues at the New Jersey DEP for yet another opportunity to join you on this road trip all around New Jersey. It shows your deep commitment to these efforts. And EPA is here to be with you as you continue to go to your other locations. And we thank everyone in Bridgeton and Cumberland County for your warm welcome tonight and for all the comments that you shared with us.
Thank you as well.
Gracias.
Thank you, and with that, we'll see you soon.
Thank you, everybody.